Okay. All right. Okay, we're gonna go back and try this one more time. We'll start at the beginning. We have the consumer advocate, Dean Nishina. And next up, we have Jay Griffin, Hawaii Public Utilities Commission. All right, now we see you now.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. Jay Griffin with the Commission. I just want to make a couple comments on our testimony. We share the concerns with wildfires and outages that we've seen in Maui County. So I think we're open to further review. We've received detailed reports of these outages when they happen. We've done follow-up, but understanding the importance and need for transparency here, Commission's open to different forms of more formal review. We just asked that there's a broader scope than just looking at the question of underground versus overhead transmission line infrastructure. So with that, I'll be ready for any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Henry Curtis, Life of the Land.
Aloha. We too share the same concerns as the Public Utilities Commission. We think it's broader than overhead versus underground. It's also relocating lines and looking at statewide issues. So it shouldn't just be Maui, but everyone. It's a critical issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And we do ask, if possible, that you turn your video on when testifying, just so we know.
My apology,
Henry, because we know your voice, but for others, we might not know. And finally, we have Hawaiian Electric.
Hi, good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. My name is Kirsten Wong, and I'm testifying on behalf of Hawaiian Electric in opposition of House Bill 592. We support the intent of the bill, which is to have the Public Utilities Commission assess the feasibility of converting existing electrical overhead transmission and distribution lines in Maui County as a mitigation against the adverse effects of wildfire, high winds, and sea level rise. However, the Public Utilities Commission currently has an ongoing open docket number 2018-0165 to investigate integrated grid planning, which provides a framework for external stakeholder engagement to address grid needs. One of the working groups identified in this docket is the Resilience Working Group. The Resilience Working Group, with oversight from the PUC, will incorporate state and local considerations and related resiliency planning activities and synthesize these resiliency needs into integrated grid planning criteria. It is anticipated that the scope of the Resilience Working Group will cover some of the concerns conveyed in this bill. Thus, this bill could circumvent the work of the Resilience Working Group, which consists of various community and government stakeholders. In addition, the Public Utilities Commission, like many other government entities, have limited resources. Thus, initiating another formal docket when one exists that covers the intent of this bill would further burden limited resources. Accordingly, the Hawaiian Electric Company opposes House Bill 592. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And that's all the in-person testifiers we have today. Members, any questions? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the next measure. This is also about undergrounding utilities. This is relating to underground construction of high voltage electric transmission lines. This eliminates part of the approval process for underground construction if certain conditions are met. And first up to testify, we have the consumer advocate, Dean Nishina. I don't see him on the call still. So next up we have Hawaiian Electric, Dave Okamura.
Okay, good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. My name is Dave Okamura, and I am testifying on behalf of Hawaiian Electric Company in support of House Bill 78, relating to the underground construction of high voltage electrical transmission lines. Hawaiian Electric supports the intent of this bill, which is to streamline the regulatory process while maintaining appropriate oversight by the Public Utilities Commission. This bill proposes that in cases where the entire cost to underground a new 46,000 volt or greater electric transmission line is paid for by an entity other than the public utility, a report will be submitted in lieu of an application to the Public Utilities Commission requesting formal approval. This will save the Public Utilities Commission and the Department of Commerce and Consumer Affairs time and resources and still provide necessary cost safeguards for Hawaiian Electric customers. Accordingly, the Hawaiian Electric Company supports House Bill 78. Thank you for this opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And finally, we have Jay Griffin, PUC.
Good morning. Yeah, we stand on our written testimony in support of the measure available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the in-person testifiers we have. Members, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question, Chair.
Rep. Mariyoshi.
This. Oh, do I just speak into the microphone and not unmute myself?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question for Hawaiian Electric or maybe whoever is relevant. This kind of has to do with both bills 592 and HB 78. I'm just wondering if there's been any research done on whether when the high power line is underground, whether the ground or the casing is going to provide sufficient insulation to protect nearby houses or even people walking near it. You know, when high power lines are way above our heads, I think they pose less of a threat than right underneath our feet. I think I'm remembering right that radiation dissipates kind of exponentially over distance. So I think when you shorten the distance greatly, you're really getting a little more or quite a bit more exposure to the radiation, I think. Does anyone have any knowledge of whether there's going to be sufficient insulation either caused by the ground or by whatever casing it's in?
Yeah, I mean, and you're correct as far as the distance does help as far as dissipating the radiation. But yeah, no, we don't have any research that shows any harmful impacts, you know, due to underground lines, any proven anything anyway.
Has this been done before in other states safely?
Undergrounding the lines, yes, for sure.
Okay, good enough for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Members, any further questions? All right, if not, we'll move on to the next measure on the agenda. This is relating to renewable energy. This bill provides for timely review by the Public Utilities Commission in its decision-making process regarding proposed renewable energy projects, requires the timely completion of the internet connection process by the Public Utilities Commission. And first up to testify, we have Consumer Advocate Dean Nishina with comments. I still don't see him on the call, so we'll move on to Hawaii State Energy Office. Scott Glenn.
Aloha, Chair Lowen, members of the committee. We stand on our testimony as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. With comments, Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin.
Good morning, Chair. I just want to highlight a few things from our testimony. We very much share the concern, I think, in this bill over the interconnection delays. We've held 2 status conferences, been following up in a variety of ways of delays with the stage 1 renewable energy projects and community renewable projects. So we're ready and willing to talk about that. The committee should also know it takes significant resources from our organization in processing the review of these agreements. These are 20 to sometimes 30-year agreements. We do a thorough review, and so we devote. These are large teams working on this. We've revised our internal procedures to do more in a timely manner, but every time we pick one of these up, there's other work that has to sit as a result. And you'll see in our testimony, I think our greatest concern is over the 6-month timeline. These are not one-size-fit-all projects, and particularly ones that are extremely complicated or have controversy. We raised that actually putting this timeline in is likely to lead to greater uncertainty for all parties involved. The key provision in these agreements is a non-appealable PUC approval order. And I think putting this timeline in actually raises a lot of risk of more lengthy appeals. So with that, I'll leave it and be ready for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Life of the Land, Henry Curtis.
I can't get my picture up. I think the host has stopped it. But we support what the PUC position. We think that the PUC is moving very effectively forward to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Lupono Initiative. says Micah Munokate. I don't see him, but we do have the written testimony offering comments. Then we have Hawaii Clean Power Alliance. We have Hawaiian Electric with late testimony, so we're not going to allow in-person testifying when this testimony is submitted late. And we have Climate Protectors Coalition also with late testimony. So that's all the testimony we have on this, members. Any questions? All right, if not, I guess a quick question for the PUC. Can you just explain to us what you are doing to, expedite these processes? Or, if you have
Sure.
suggestions of what further could be done?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So we've recently, we've seen delays with projects that are in the works with community renewable energy, the first phase and stage 1 projects. We've hosted a number of meetings with Hawaiian Electric, asking them what more can be done to pull the timelines forward again. We recently issued an order directing them to work with stakeholders on, fundamentally here, there's the interconnection process that's in the middle of our approval and bringing these projects online. And so they work with developers on the technical upgrades and configurations that are needed to build the project and connect it to their system. So I think fundamentally there needs to be reform and improvements in the near term and the long term. We've asked the companies to work on that, both for the existing projects and for the next round of projects. We continue to monitor it, and we're continuing to act further. We've told the companies to submit the next round of projects sooner. We've also instituted some level of incentives to bring projects online sooner, and in some cases, possibility of penalties. So I think that's the short of it, but I want to emphasize our great level of concern here. These are all important projects to the state, and we want to see them done in a timely manner.
All right, thank you. I think we'll be continuing this discussion throughout session, but I'll stop with questions there. Does anyone else have questions? I don't think so. All right, next on our agenda, if I can find it, is House Bill 115. This is another bill looking at the timeliness of interconnections and also proposing that we activate the Hawaii Electricity Reliability Administrator statute. So first up we have DCCA, Consumer Advocate, Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair. We stand on our testimony as submitted with comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Utilities Commission.
We also stand on our written testimony offering comments. Thank you.
Life of the Land, Henry Curtis.
We also stand on our testimony.
Thank you. Hawaii Clean Power Alliance. In support, we have 2 late testimonies as well from Hawaiian Electric in opposition and Climate Protectors Coalition in support. Let's see, that's all the testimony we have submitted at this time. Members, any questions? All right, if not, just a quick question, for whoever wants to take a stab at this, I guess, just because we haven't discussed whether, there should be a Hawaii Electricity Reliability Administrator in a while. Can someone give a brief explanation of what that is and how that could help potentially to expedite projects?
I believe an RFP was put out for the HERA, and then it was withdrawn by the PUC with a change of administration. HERA would set interconnection standards and therefore do it on an efficient level and not be invested in the outcome one way or the other. That is, they don't have a profit to gain or lose because of the speed.
I can offer a few comments. Thank you, Mr. Curtis. There was never an RFP put out. I worked on the internal team as a staff member. We had a white paper drafted on outlining a potential scope for this administrator. And there was never full agreement at the commission and at that time at how broad or narrow this entity should be. And I think, frankly, what happened is the commission had been, you go through, this was about 2013, 2014. If you go through the timeline of major activities at the commission, we had a merger proposal and a number of other dockets that came to the forefront. I can also say I'm not sure there was ever in this intermediate time the number of projects like we have now that would support the resources that would have to go into this. And so I think that part has changed. And so what the committee should know is that to run this entity, commission would impose a surcharge either broadly. There's a range in statute. This would be a surcharge on all customers or on projects interconnecting to the system that is going to support the person or team of people running the entity. So we've always been very concerned about adding new charges to the bill and the value that we're all going to see from this. So to get more narrowly at your question, Chair, I think there is a potential role here, someone that can be dedicated to oversee this interconnection process, make sure things are moving, if questions come up from the developer community, be there as an independent party to adjudicate those and report to the commission. We have used our independent observers in the RFP process for a lot of this now, but it's not the main hat that they wear. So I think that we're open to considering this, but the committee should know this comes with a cost. And so that's why we've been careful about the right time and scope to do this. So I'll leave it at that.
So what would be the right time and scope? Like what makes it the right time or the wrong time?
Well, frankly, we wish we didn't have to do this. The delays to these projects, frankly, shouldn't have happened. So to have to pay another administrator to oversee this process is a concern. So I think what we're trying to do is improve that interconnection process and see it more timely without having to go to this extent would be the first preference.
And if we did establish the here and now, like how would it apply to projects already how would that entity interact with projects already in the pipeline?
Sure, I mean, this is another thing. I mean, this is not something that's going to happen immediately. We would have to stand this entity up, hire somebody, and there's not necessarily a giant market of people globally that do this. There's some other larger jurisdictions, particularly California, that's looked at having an independent monitor like this. But we would need to find the right person, bring them on board, have them contracted. So I think in the interim, it would be the commission still overseeing a lot of the projects in process.
Okay, thank you. Members, any follow-up questions? All right, if not, we'll move on to House Bill 111. This is relating to renewable energy, prohibits after a date to be determined any new extension improvements, overhauling, refurbishing of any fossil fuel electricity generation or fossil fuel powered electricity used for grid-tied battery energy storage, and prohibits after a blank date the use of fossil fuels for electricity generation or grid-tied battery energy storage. So first up, we have Jay Griffin, PUC.
Yes, we stand on our written testimony offering comments available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Dean Nishina, consumer advocate, with comments. Kauai State Energy Office, Scott Glenn or Maria.
Aloha, Chair. Thank you. We stand on our written comments.
Thank you. We have Skyline Hawaii, Daniel Boren in support. Life of the Land, Henry Curtis.
We stand on our comments.
Thank you. We have KIUC, Dave Bissell in opposition. IBEW 1260, Adam Carlson in opposition. Our Revolution Hawaii in support. 350 Hawaii in support. Hawaii Clean Power Alliance in support. Hawaiian Electric. Marcusano.
Yep. Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. Just wanted to highlight a few comments from our testimony. While the company does, support breaking our dependence on fossil fuel, we do think with the recent performance-based regulation and RPS statute, the company will those mechanisms ensure that we will move towards reducing our fossil fuel usage. We do have concerns that a fossil fuel ban could jeopardize the reliability of the system and our ability to provide service, especially when there may be poor weather conditions such as cloudy days or insufficient wind to be able to, for example, charge batteries and provide service during the high demand periods in the evening. And so I'll just want to highlight a few of those concerns, but happy to take questions after.
Thank you. Next, we have Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party. In support, Sandy Wong with Tesla. With comments, we have, I'll read the names of individuals in support if anyone is here. I'm not sure I see any of these names. We have Janet Pappas in support, Tia Pearson in support, Stacy Tang in support, Nanea Lowe, Noel Bobolin, Dyson Chi, Laura Gray, Mark Hickson, June Shin, I do see here in support.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jun Shin. Just offering quick testimony. Hoping that this is implemented as soon as possible, as feasible, at a feasible time, to match this current climate crisis, and hopefully that this opens up the possibility to explore ideas like community ownership of energy and putting resources toward paying caregivers and teachers who are already doing low carbon jobs and just exploring new ideas to create a more cleaner economy and society. Thank you so much.
Chair Lowen, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let you know that I am on the call. I just couldn't start my video also.
Okay, right now?
If I could, please. So I'm here on behalf of Tesla. And of course, Tesla supports a renewable economy. Although we do have some concerns, we think this bill takes too broad of a brush. Unfortunately, technology now, battery storage still needs some fossil fuel to operate. And so we do have some concerns about the bill, and we offered some amendments in our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have your written testimony. Thanks. Next, we have Caroline Kunitake in support. And then we have a number of late testifiers. I'll just read those names. All in support: Ted Bolin, Laura Breyer, Robert King, Matthew Geyer, and Kuhan Pike, all in support. And that is the end of our list of testifiers. Members, any questions? No. Okay. I have a few questions. First, for Hawaiian Electric. If the date filled in the blank here was 2045, that matched up with our RPS, and the bill only did that, banned the use of fossil fuel after 2045, and we, even took out the reference to battery storage just hypothetically, I would assume then that would be fine, because that would just line up with existing RPS and just put a backstop on the other end. Or would you have a concern with that additionally.
Yes, so, I guess, there's further discussion on, the bills relating to the definition of RPS. But yeah, that would be, we can take that into consideration. I think the alternative, to achieve the 100% RPS goal, we may be seeking alternative fuels to be able to have, a resilient grid that is able to provide energy even to ride through any poor weather or other type of emergency type conditions.
And can you also describe the situation where, as we work our way toward the 100% renewable goals, where it would be required for battery storage that was, either part of a bigger solar project or standalone to be partially charged with fossil fuels? Like, when would that occur?
The expectation is that batteries would not be normally or routinely charged through fossil fuel. I think the first option is always to be able to charge it with renewable resources. That's with the recent procurements, we did see a lot of projects where the solar was paired with the battery energy storage. But there may be times, like offered in my comments, where there may not be enough sun during the day. We may need to supplement that with charging the battery through the grid, which could be made up of fossil fuel energy, to ensure that we can economically serve the evening peak by discharging those batteries.
And so typically it's more efficient and makes more sense financially anyway for the utility to turn first to any excess renewables available to charge battery storage supplies.
Yeah, generally speaking, that would be true.
Okay, and then I guess another question, just looking at the language of the bill, I'm not sure who this is for, maybe PUC. Do you read it as the date of not approving any future projects? Do you read that as a hard date after which there would be no more use of fossil fuels, or is there, in that language, do you read that as a point where the ramp down would begin and we would know there would be a start of a phase out of those facilities?
Hey, Chair, I'm just bringing the language up now, just so I can be clear. I think what it would have to mean is that, right, I think a lot of these are long-term projects, so or often long-term projects, so any agreement, I think there would have to be a condition in any approval or in that agreement that after the date, whatever this date is in statute, there would be automatic ramp down. I think that's the only way we could approve something to be consistent with the way the statute's written. So, if it was 10 years before, it would be able to operate for 10 years. And then after that date, it would have to our approval would have to comply with whatever statute says. So that's my best answer off the cuff here.
And then, like, there was testimony from KIUC with their concerns of using some existing fossil fuel generation facilities as synchronous condensers, which I have to learn more about, but I assume that means converting some of that equipment or using it for a different purpose than we think of it being used for. So how would this bill impact that?
I haven't had a chance to read their testimony. Mark can answer for Hawaiian Electric, but it's a valid concern, particularly with the smaller islands, and actually all of them. The synchronous condensers are one of the resources we're going to need to support the grid. And so it's an example of using a fossil fuel based facility that's necessary as we take other generation offline. So haven't had a chance to read it. I'll let Mark, but it's a valid concern.
Okay, and then one last question, or actually, Mark, did you want to add?
Yeah, Chair, if I could offer a few comments there. Yeah, the synchronous, Hawaiian Electric as well has plans for synchronous condensers, including converting some of our old fossil generators to a synchronous condenser. It essentially doesn't provide megawatts to the system, but it provides other services to the system that are needed to secure reliability. So Hawaiian Electric, I haven't read KIUC's testimony either, but to the extent Hawaiian Electric would probably share the same concerns, depending on our ability to be able to reuse existing assets as synchronous condensers. It probably pertains to provisions in the bill related to capital or making investments to overhaul or maintain units.
Okay, and so then final question for PUC. Like hypothetically, we get to 2045 and all the laws that we have now are still the same. And because the current RPS is a percent of sales, not generation, then you could hypothetically use fossil fuels to charge a bank of batteries and then sell the electricity from the batteries to put that onto the grid. Would that count as renewable energy under current statute?
I don't think so. If it was clear that it was charged with fossil fuel, or it could make a clear case, because it wouldn't meet we'd have to look at the list of renewable resources in the statute there. And if it was clear that it's being charged off of something else, then that generation exported would not be able to count. I have to think this through a little more, but I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Members, any questions? Nope. Okay. All right. We will move on to next measure on the agenda, House Bill 561. This is requiring PUC to determine whether analysis of the effect of the state's reliance on fossil fuels is necessary for proceedings involving water, wastewater, and telecommunications. So this is sort of clarifying some of the requirements that were put in place by some court decisions more recently. So first up, we have Consumer Advocate, Jean Nishina, not present. Next, we have Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin.
Hi, we stand on our written testimony offering support.
Thank you. Henry Curtis, Life of the Land.
Aloha, legislators. The bill does three things. First, it would allow the commission to decide on telecom, water, and wastewater. We see telecom as probably a thing that can be removed from doing greenhouse gas analysis. Water and wastewater, if you remove them, that just means that if the PUC decides that they're not required, it would end up in litigation, which would be worse or more time-consuming than current. The bill also says that it pertains only to electric and gas utility system capital improvements and operations, which is a confusing piece of language. First, it would exempt Young Brothers and other shipping companies, which is not electric or gas. But second, what the whole issue of what is an operation or improvement is not defined by law. HECO and the gas company both asserted that fuel contracts should not have greenhouse gas analyses. The PUC said, no, it should. We agreed with the PUC. This bill would make it unclear. Would make it unclear if fracking of gas and oil is included or excluded, or cement used in wind turbines, or refining of fuels. So the bill seeks clarification, but in a way that confuses everything and would wind up in litigation if it went in that way.
Thank you. Next up, we have Hawaii Gas with comments. Hawaii Clean Power Alliance with comments, and then late testimony from Kevin Katsura in support. Members, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna not ask questions at this time, but I think we'll need to probably get together and talk about what the exact right way to phrase that is that will address some of the concerns raised by Life of the Land. But we probably will still keep this bill moving in consideration. Next bill on the agenda, House Bill 116 relating to energy efficiency. This is adding to our appliance efficiency standards that we passed in 2019. So we're adding a couple new appliances to the list. First up, we have Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin.
Hey, we stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Hawaii State Energy Office, Scott Glenn.
We stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
We have Plumbing Manufacturers International, Mark Sigler. And we have Next Blue Planet Foundation, Melissa Miyashiro.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, Chair Lowen, Vice Chair Martin, and members of the committee. I'm Melissa Miyashiro from Blue Planet Foundation. You have our written testimony. I just wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, thank you for hearing this measure and continuing to think about energy efficiency on our journey to 100% clean energy. It's often overlooked, but critically important, particularly now with so many residents struggling to pay their monthly utility bills and other monthly expenses. So this is one of several measures on the agenda today that would help lower those financial monthly burdens for residents. And I just wanted to highlight the potential for savings by adding just these two appliances or these two products alone. By 2025, the savings equate to 3.4 million annually, and that jumps up to 12.3 million by 2035. So this is significant savings, one of those low-hanging fruit policies. And another important function or piece of this bill is that it improves the mechanism for adding additional appliances in the future. So rather than doing this legislatively, each and every time we want to add a product to ensure minimum efficiency standards that could be done through the rulemaking process. So thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Hawaii Energy. All right, next we have Appliance Standards Awareness Project.
Good morning, Chair Lowen and members of the committee. My name is Brian Fady. I'm a state policy associate with the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. We did submit written comments that we stand by, and so I won't repeat them. I'll just say I believe it's the first time we're appearing before the committee. Appliance Standards Awareness Project is a coalition project that includes representatives from energy efficiency, consumer, and environmental advocacy groups, as well as state government offices and utilities. And we work to advance cost-effective appliance standards at the national and state level. So thank you again for considering this bill, and we encourage support.
Thank you. And next up we have Appliance Standards Awareness Project, Marianne Damasio.
Yes, no further comments. I stand by the comments Brian submitted. Thank you.
And then we have Amy Brinker, individual in support, and then late testimony from the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance in support, and from the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers in opposition. No further testifiers on my list. Members, are there any questions on this measure? Okay, I think we're gonna move on to the next one on the agenda. That is House Bill 555 relating to consumer protection. So this is requiring signage to make consumers aware of what rebates are available through Hawaii Energy. This is a a rebate that is paid for by ratepayers on their electric bills, and also to update the cost of operations to be relevant to Hawaii, because Hawaii's cost per kilowatt hour of energy outlier compared to the averages that are used to calculate this based on mainland numbers. And first up, we have Public Utilities Commission, Jay Griffin.
Yeah, we stand on our written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. With comments, Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair. We submitted comments. With just want to note that we are working in close collaboration with the Public Benefits Fee Administrator on implementation of this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Blue Planet Foundation, Melissa Miyashiro.
Hi, good morning. Melissa with Blue Planet will stand on our testimony and support.
Thank you. Hawaii Energy, Brian K. Aloha. In support. And then we have late testimony from the Climate Protectors Coalition, from the Association of Home Appliance Manufacturers, and from Tina Yamaki with Retail Merchants. Members, any questions? All right, great. Well, we'll move on to the next measure on our agenda, House Bill 328, relating to energy efficiency. This is allowing for the installation of energy efficient technologies on privately owned single-family residential dwellings or townhouses with limited restrictions. So this is basically saying that a homeowners association can't prevent certain technologies from being accessed by residents or owners. First up, we have Hawaii State Energy Office.
Thank you, Chair. We submitted written comments and would just like to note that we think some more work could be done on the definition for energy efficient technologies to help provide greater clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we have Associa Hawaii in opposition. Our Revolution Hawaii in support. 350 Hawaii in support. We have a number of individuals in support. I'll read their names. Janet Papa, Stacy Tang, Nanea Lowe, Noel Bobolin, Laura Gray, Mark Hickson, Richard Camp, and Caroline Kuntake. And then we have late testimony from the Kauai Climate Action Coalition in support, Climate Protectors Coalition in support, and Kuhan Pike in support. And with that, members, are there any questions? Okay, we will move on. Okay, Rep. Martin.
This is a question for Scott Glenn. Do you have a recommendation for clarifying it? Would it be just to delete the word includes and leave it with the 3 specific items that are listed?
Thank you, Representative Martin. That's certainly one direction that could be taken. The one thing we wanted to note was that per the Legislative Reference Bureau's style for legislative drafting, includes is a partial list, so it leaves it open to interpretation for what else might be a part of it. And we would recommend that the legislature put in an exhaustive list, whether it's only those 3 things or if you had other things in mind as well, to include those other things too.
Okay, any further questions? Great. We will move on to House Bill 860 relating to rooftop solar installation. This basically mandates rooftop photovoltaic energy systems for all new building permits for single family dwellings unless they're granted a variance. First up, we have Hawaii State Energy Office.
Aloha, Chair. And on our comments as submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Skyline Hawaii. In support, we have Henry Curtis, Life of the Land.
We're only not sure how the 20 came about and why smaller units that are more than 1 or 2 are not included.
Thank you. That was in support. We have Hawaii Realtors, Ken Haraki. with testimony and opposition. Our Revolution Hawaii in support. 350 Hawaii in support. Blue Planet Foundation, Melissa Miyashiro.
We stand on our testimony in support.
Thank you. BIA Hawaii in opposition. Hawaii Gas offering comments. Land Use Research Foundation of Hawaii in opposition. Hawaii PV Coalition, this is late testimony in support. Sierra Club of Hawaii, late testimony in support. Hawaii Climate Action Coalition, late testimony in support. And then we have another number of other individuals in support. We have Roy Skaggs, we have Jeff, no last name, Janet Pappas, Stacy Tang, Nanea Lowe, Noah Bobolin, Laura Gray, Mark Hickson, Fina Bonoan, Richard Camp, and Kiana, no last name. And then additional late testimony in support from Kuhan Pike and Caroline Kunatake. Members, any questions? Okay, I have a quick question maybe for State Energy Office. I think your testimony indicated that you support the concept, but that the structure or where in statute we're putting this might not be the most appropriate. And you referenced the California law that was passed. So what would be like a parallel? Like what would be parallel in Hawaii? Like where would we house this requirement in statute? If we're
Thank you,
looking
Chair.
at that.
I think one of the questions that we've been looking at is this a state agency function or a county function? Is it a building permit? It looks like this is modeled after the solar water heater variance approach, which is assigning the State Energy Office the responsibility to issue variances, which is typically a county function. In this case, we did note that California's experience might be worth learning from, both what they did well and what problems they ran into that we could perhaps head off either through statutory construction or on the implementation side, should this bill become law. And in terms of statute, which statute, if it were to stay at the state level, 196 makes sense. And if I could just add a note on section 2, where it does assign the director of DBED to make rules for this, it might be something to look at for aligning with the previous bill we heard, which would assign the chief energy officer rulemaking for appliance efficiency standards. Perhaps this is also something that would be appropriate to the chief energy officer to do rather than the DBED director.
Okay, thank you. All right, if no other questions, we will move on to House Bill 906 relating to energy assurance. And this is updating the statute regarding energy assurance. So when there is a disaster, what are the actions that are taken to ensure we have a reliable electricity supply? And first up, we have DBET Chun Chang in support. We have Hawaii State Energy Office.
Thank you, Chair. And on behalf of DBED, Director McCartney and Deputy Director Chang were neither able to make it today. This is an administrative bill that we requested Governor to introduce. This is a bill that's gone through the legislature, and the House has passed it out several times over the past couple of years. And we introduced it last year, and it crossed over, but it did not make it through due to COVID, is my understanding. So we requested to reintroduce the bill. The primary function of it is to work with emergency operations so that we can anticipate when there's going to be energy shortages. The statute focuses on fossil fuel, and we would like to make sure that it encompasses all energy resources necessary for the state to function during an emergency. And then finally, it provides the opportunity to have that level of visibility and help contribute to what we call a common operating picture for the state's energy resources when there's an emergency either happening or an impending one, because many times we can't act until the governor declares an emergency. And the statute would also allow us to do some more pre-planning and preparation work. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then we have the Civil Beat Law Center for the Public Interest offering comments. We have Hawaii Gas, Steve Chang offering comments. Okay, that's all the testifiers we have. Members, any questions? All right, I guess I'll ask just some of the testimony indicated that the confidentiality additions that you're adding in the sections 125C(b) and 125CC are like not necessary to ensure confidentiality, but that they create a extra level that will cause agency to be overly cautious about any information they release, even if it's not subject to confidentiality. Do you think that's a valid concern?
Thank you for raising that. Confidentiality of data has been a central question of this bill, and we've gone to great lengths to try to address it, both with
Can you speak
energy
up a
data
little? Our
providers as
speakers
well
aren't loud enough in here, so.
So we've been in discussion with both the companies that would provide that data. Much of that data is usually is considered confidential. Even in Public Utilities Commission dockets, it's marked confidential. So we recognize the striking of the balance of publicly accessible information versus confidentiality. In this case, we would be looking to set up a framework, and in fact, we've hired a staff person, a data scientist, to help us develop a data governance framework that includes how to handle confidential data. This position is funded with a federal grant from the Department of Energy to help us with establishing these protocols so that we could take the feedback from people who have concerns about us being overly cautious with sharing data to develop sound principles for when data does need to be retained and confidential and when we can make it publicly available.
And what assurances are there? I know that grid security is a big concern these days also, and the potential for cyber attacks and how some of this information getting out there can contribute to that issue. So how does government having access to this data impact that issue?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So cybersecurity is the responsibility of the Enterprise Technology Services Office, ETS, and we work with them as well as HIEMA and the Department of Defense and Department of Energy and other federal agencies on ensuring best practices for data security.
All right, thank you. And then I noted that, throughout much of the rest of the bill, some of the amendments are just changing the language from authorizing the governor or his authorized representative to directly authorizing the chief energy officer. And I'm wondering if that's necessary or if that raises concerns for, a non-elected individual to be put in control of these powers under a declared emergency.
Thank you. And our understanding is that all of this would still be delegated by the governor, but I'd be happy to take a fresh look at it and consider whether those concerns are there, if we can address them.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Members, further questions? Any follow-ups? Okay. All right. We're on to the last bill on our agenda, House Bill 556, relating to energy efficiency. And this is requiring that some members of the State Building Code Council have experience and knowledge in energy efficiency standards and in basically green building design and sustainable building design and construction. And then it also shortens the timeline that the counties have to adopt the International Energy Conservation Code portion of the building code, so that we are able to be more up to date on our energy efficiency measures within the building code, and it's not taking quite so long to get those implemented. So first up, we have Hawaii State Energy Office, Scott Glenn.
Thank you, Chair. For this bill, in addition to our testimony, I would just like to note that currently the Hawaii State Energy Office Energy Efficiency Program Manager Howard Wigg serves as the elected chair among the members of the State Building Code Council. And in the section in section 2 on voting member expertise, the Energy Office is an ex officio member of the State Building Code Council and does contribute the energy efficiency expertise to the council, almost by statutory definition already. And then the second point about the county timelines, we have been working with the counties to help them with adoption, and we do note that they, in particular with the county and city councils, the committee hearings create a lot of lag in the adoption cycle, and we just wanted to raise that for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ulupono Initiative. In support, we have Blue Planet Foundation, Melissa Miyashiro.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just a few comments. I know that building codes aren't the most exciting topic or policy, but they are a really important lever that influences the health and safety and well-being of our communities. And it's critically important that we keep them up to date because they guide new construction that's going to be in the building stock for decades to come. So we see this as a really important measure. It just pertains to the energy conservation codes. It doesn't touch other types of building codes. And the energy code in particular has really lagged behind in its update cycle. And so what this bill does is it adjusts the faulty timeline that's embedded in the statute to bring it up so that it's in alignment with the national code update cycle, which is something that other states have done. And you'll see in our testimony a chart that shows how other states have been able to keep up with that national update cycle, whereas Hawaii has historically lagged there. So thank you for hearing this bill.
Thank you. And then we have Amy Brinker, an individual in support, and then finally Climate Protectors Coalition in support. And that is the end of our testifier list. Members, any questions on this final bill?
Yeah, I've got a question, Chair.
Rep. Mariyoshi.
Thank you. If I could get Scott Glenn back. So I'm looking at the building codes. It looks like from your testimony that we've already adopted the 2018 IECC. Is that correct? And
That's correct.
You know, in just having a little bit of experience with building codes, certainly not an expert by any stretch of the imagination. I do understand that sometimes Hawaii does not adopt the latest IBCs or other standard, more international building codes. Sometimes because we want to kind of just see what happens with other states. Is there any advantage to not immediately adopting the IECC of 2021 right upon its publication, and instead waiting a little bit?
Thank you, Rep. And my apologies, there's a car alarm going off in the background, so if you can hear it, I apologize to everyone. For this bill, this is less focused on the state adoption. It's more on the county adoption, and currently the counties have the opportunity at any point. So for this case with the IECC 2021, they did publish it, and we are working on convening a working group of stakeholders to help support the State Building Code Council in considering the 2021 and what Hawaii local amendments to it would be appropriate. And so we would not be rushing into adopting the 2021 code. The 2018 code was adopted after quite a bit of discussion among the stakeholders in the State Building Code Council. We, in that case, ended up customizing it to the Hawaii needs, but because it was widely considered to be a more moderate increase in standards, there was less focus needed, we thought, and because 2021 does represent a larger step on building codes, that we wanted to make sure that we start now building the common consensus to support the State Building Code Council in its work.
Okay, that might be my mistake. Maybe I misread the bill. So this bill is just when we adopt, if and when we adopt the 2021 code sometime in the future, then this is directing the counties to adopt it very shortly thereafter. Otherwise, it's just kind of pressed upon them. Okay.
Correct.
I just thought I didn't want it to skip that process. That's all. But thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Great, members, any other questions? All right, if not, we'll take a brief recess before we go into decision making. All right, we're reconvening for decision-making on our first energy and environmental protection agenda. So first up, we have House Bill 592 relating to utilities. So this is the one requiring PUC to open a docket to look at some of the above ground utility line issues on Maui. We're going to make some amendments to this to change that language in requesting the docket from looking specifically at undergrounding from being the only solution to language that says the PUC shall explore through its docket process solutions to the problems posed by siting of above ground electric utility infrastructure in high-risk areas, including both undergrounding and non-wires alternatives. And for that first item on the agenda, on the list of things to look at, instead of looking just at the amortization of what it would cost to do this, we will request that the docket look at the costs that possible solutions will incur and the potential rate and bill impact on Maui customers. And then we also have some technical amendments, and we will defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments, questions? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
So noting that Representative Tokioka is absent for this session, the recommendation of the chair is to
pass with amendments.
Vice Chair votes aye, and Representative Lowe.
Aye.
Representative Hashem. Aye. Representative Matayoshi.
Aye.
Representative Caruso. Aye. Representative Todd.
Aye.
So Representative Matsumoto.
Aye. Oh, she's here. She's voting.
Aye. Okay, so we had 7 ayes, 1 excused, and measure passes.
All right, thank you. Good job, Vice Chair. First time taking the vote. Moving on to the next bill on the agenda, House Bill 78. This is again relating to underground utilities, just expediting the approval process. We are looking to adopt the recommendations in the testimony of the consumer advocate about the wording in subsection D2, which is a small amendment, and then some other technical amendments, and then defect the effective date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments or questions? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Okay, so Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Noting that Tokioka is excused. Are there any no's or reservations? Hearing none, measure passes with
thank you
7 ayes, 1 excused.
Thank you. Next up, we have House Bill 560. This is interconnection timelines. We're going to pass this with amendments. On page 8, we're going to eliminate that first new proposed section that puts in the automatic approval deadline of 180 days, and we'll just keep the second half of that for the time being so that we have a vehicle to continue this conversation about timeliness of project approvals moving forward. We might make some amendments to the purpose clause to align with the changes that we made, and then some technical amendments, and we will defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments or questions? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends aye with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any no's or reservations? Hearing none, measure passes with 7 ayes, 1 excused.
Thank you. And next up, we have House Bill 115. This is the second bill looking at interconnection issues and proposing to, establish the electricity reliability administrator. I think at this time, while we, have a vehicle to discuss the interconnection issues and we don't need to have 2, we're going to defer this at this time, but we'll continue to have this conversation, and I look forward to learning more about this as well. So that's just defer. Yeah. All right, next up we have House Bill 111. This is relating to renewable energy. So this is the bill that proposes to set a date after which there will be no more fossil fueled electricity generation. It also relates to how batteries are charged. I think because we need to better understand what could be the unintended consequences of applying this language to battery energy storage, that we want to keep this bill moving forward to consider the idea of whether on the other side of the RPS, we should put an end date on use of fossil fuels, kind of like a backstop on that RPS language. So I think we're going to narrow this down to just the language that says after a certain date, there should be no more energy generation from fossil fuels in the state. And we're just going to go ahead and align that date with the RPS for the time being, so that we're not scaring anyone that we're making major changes to the RPS at this time, but that we are making a statement about ending the use of fossil fuel. So it'll be very narrowed down, and the date will be 2045. And then there's some technical amendments, and we will defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments or concerns? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends to pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any noes or reservations? Hearing none, measure passes with 7 ayes, 1 excused.
And next up, we have House Bill 561. This is relating to energy. We're going to move this forward, just defecting the date to July 1st, 2050 to continue the conversation, and noting that there were concerns raised by Life of the Land that this could lead to continued litigation, which I think is what we're trying not to have. So we do want to do some work going forward and looking at that language and making sure that we have all parties on board. So yeah, with that, Vice Chair, or any comments or questions? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Okay, Chair and Vice Chair vote pass with amendments. Any reservations or noes? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused, measure passes.
Thank you. Next, we have House Bill 116. This is adopting some additional appliance efficiency standards. We are going to take the recommendation of the plumbing organization to align the definition of shower heads with what is existing in California statute to provide consistency for the industry. And we have some technical amendments to that bill, and we're going to defect the date to July 1st, 2050 and move it forward for further discussion. Members, any comments or questions? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends pass with amendments. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Any reservations or noes? Noting none, 7 ayes, 1 excused, measure passes.
Thank you. And then we have House Bill 555 relating to consumer protection. This is the signage for available public benefits fee funded rebates. I'm going to recommend adopting the recommendations from Hawaii Energy's testimony regarding the work that they can do to reach out and make these requirements known to all retailers who would be subject to them, and some technical amendments, and then defecting the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments or questions? All right, if not, please take the vote.
Chair and Vice Chair vote pass with amendments. Any reservations or noes? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused, measure passes.
Thank you. So next up we have House Bill 328. This is relating to energy efficiency. This is making sure that homeowners associations aren't blocking good energy efficiency measures, but it does seem like there's some work to be done on the definition and the language to address some concerns that were raised. But we want to continue this discussion, so we're going to defect the date to July 1st, 2050. and make some technical amendments. And the vice chair's bill, so she's going to continue working on coming up with the needed changes to be made in a subsequent committee. So if members any comments, if not, please take the vote.
Chair and vice chair vote pass with amendments. Any reservations or noes? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused. Measure passes.
Thank you. And then we have House Bill 860. This is relating to rooftop solar installation. We do note that we need to consider what's the appropriate place to house this requirement in statute if we move forward with it, and we'll need to continue to do the work to look at that. For the time being, we will make the change to move the rulemaking authority from out of the Hawaii State Energy Office and to DBET for the current version of the bill, and then we'll defect the date to July 1st, 2050, and move this forward for further discussion. Members, any comments or concerns? All right, if not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
Chair recommends pass with amendments. Vice Chair and Chair vote aye. Any reservations or noes? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused. Measure passes.
Thank you. And then House Bill 906 relating to energy assurance. We are going to add in, well, actually, so any instance in this bill where the law has been amended to either remove the governor and replace it with the chief energy officer, or amend it from governor or authorized rep to governor or chief energy officer, we're just going to revert that to existing language in the statute. So if the governor wants to authorize the chief energy officer, he would be able to do that. So we don't believe this change is needed, and we'll remove that. And then there are numerous other technical amendments, and we will defect the date to July 1st, 2050. Members, any comments or concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
Chair recommends pass with amendments. Vice Chair votes aye. Any noes or reservations? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused. Measure passes.
Thank you. And last on our agenda, House Bill 556. This is relating to energy efficiency is the title of the bill, but this is relating to the State Building Code Council. This bill, we're just going to make some technical amendments and defect the date to July 1st, 2050 and move this forward. Members, any comments or concerns? If not, Vice Chair, please take the vote.
When it's just technical, does that pass as is that amended?
With amendments.
Okay. Chair recommends pass with amendments. Vice Chair votes aye. Any noes or reservations? Hearing none, 7 ayes, 1 excused. Measure passes.
All right, thank you everyone, and everyone on Zoom still. I think as we kind of were the trial run of how this will work, and I think with a few glitches it went pretty well, so just keep bearing with us. Thank you, and we're adjourned.